Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and man, I really appreciate you guys watching the video and taking some time out of your day to do so. Today we're going to be talking about small swim baits, guys, and one of the things about the channel here is there's certain lure categories that you're going to hear a lot about. We're going to do lots of videos on them because there's different applications and a lot of different variables to them. We've talked a little bit about small swim baits in the past, but today I really want to talk about the diversity of areas and conditions that these little small swim baits work in, and sort of give you some tips on how I fish them. Because in my opinion, the small swim bait season sort of starts in September and sort of runs up into, March or something like that. So I'm going to give you guys some of my favorite ways to catch fish on them and set them up and everything. And real quick, guys, since it is September, we're starting to get into fall, and I'd like to invite everybody to check out our fall lake map breakdowns at fishthemoment.com. I'll put the link in the description to them. These are maps I build all lakes across the country. It gives you 40 good GPS waypoints to begin your search, tips and advice on how to fish them. You download them straight to your depth finder. It's a really good resource to learn more about your favorite lakes. So link in the description, much appreciated. Okay guys, what I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about three different profiles of small swim baits, and then talk a little bit about how to fish each one of them. The first one is going to be the Megabass Hazendong Shad, which is a thin-bodied, truly a finesse swim bait right here. It's one of my favorite. And the next one is just a little round rib swim bait. This is like a 2.5-inch rib swim bait. It's a little bit fatter diameter, as you can see. And the third one is a Zoom Fluke that I considered a swim bait, even though it doesn't have a swim and tail. But these are the three that I'm going to talk about in this particular video here. So anyway, let's talk a little about when I fish which ones and which heads. There's two different heads that I fish this on. One is the new Core Tackle Hover Rig head. You've heard me talk about this, which is freaking awesome. And the other is the Megabass Okashira jig head. And also, guys, all this stuff, Core Tackle head, the Hover Rig heads, all of it. I'll put the Baitworks link in the description if you guys would like to order some through that link. That's a good deal. But I'm gonna show you guys how I like to set them up with each one. So first of all, let's talk about the conditions for the rib swim bait. Now, this is a finesse swim bait, but at the same time, what happens when you have the ribs here and a little bit fatter profile, you can use it in a little bit more off-colored water than you can a truly finesse swim bait. So when I'm talking about using the rib swim bait, sort of like I'm in a condition where, not that it won't work in clear water, because it does, but the rib swim bait actually will work a little bit better if you have a little bit of color in the water. So I really like my water visibility to be in that sort of that 3 to 4 foot zone, maybe at the very minimum 2.5 to 4.5 foot zone for that to work. Most of the time I like some type of wind, some type of a partly cloudy or clear condition for the sky. That usually works a little bit better. If the water is really clear, it helps if it's cloudy a little bit better. But this particular swim bait here, you can do a lot of stuff with it. You can fish it for suspended fish. You can fish it just off the bottom, just dragging along the bottom. You can put it on a small Carolina rig, it works good. You can put it on the back of a finesse jig. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. But I'll sort of show you how I like to set it up here. I fish this with the Okashira jig head here. I'll show you how to rig it up here. This Okashira head is a really good swim bait hook for straight swimming. And I'll show you, I'm going to get into the hover rig head when I use that, but sort of set it up like that. Just a really, just an edible looking tidbit, as you can see right here. The head fits nice on there. Usually I'm using it on 4 to 6 pound test, Seaguar and VizX line. And I'll get into the 4 pound test a little bit more. And I'm going to show you how I like to color these up a little bit, each one of them. And what I like to do on these, as you can see the way it looks right here. Now watch what I do with the marking pen. I'm going to put a little bit, come down the side. I'm going to put a little bit of chartreuse down the side, and then just a little puff on the tail. So you can see I got the little bit of puff right there, just a little bit of chartreuse. And that just sort of gives it a little bit more color. And it seems like since I do fish this in water that's not gin clear, I get a lot of bites with that. Okay, the next one, guys, a little bit different scenario, is the Megabass Hazendong Shad. Now this is truly a finesse swim bait. It's light. You got to have a really light line to cast it well. I use this bait all the time on 4-pound test Seaguar and Visix line. And guys, when you're using 4-pound test line in open water, like for suspended fish, which the Has and Dong works the best on, you'll get a lot more bites. Guys, here's one of the things about it. If you're fishing open water and you're fishing a lake that's got maybe a lot of spotted bass or smallmouth, like a mixed species, and you've got water visibility of over 4 feet, you will be shocked about how many more bites you get on 4-pound test over 6-pound test, because number one, you can cast it further, it gives the bait better action, and it's almost completely invisible in the water. All that stuff adds together. And don't get afraid. If you're using 4-pound test line in open water, you can land big fish on it. I mean, there's not much difference than in 6. And again, on the Has and Dong shad, I'm using the Megabass Okashira jig head with it. And actually, you know, one of the things, I will rig it like that and put the head in it, but one of the things that I really like to do is, this bait right here is also a really good drop shot bait. And you can put that drop shot hook right in the nose of it. But when I'm fishing it on a jig head like the Okashira, I usually cut it off just below the eye right here, and I flatten it off like that. And that allows the Okashira head to seat against there a little bit better. Now you can put it straight on the head, but this is just sort of a personal preference that I like. I'll show you how it makes the bait look. See, it makes the bait fit up against the head a little bit better. Guys, this is truly a finesse bait right here. Now, all these baits I'm talking about, these are all live scoping baits, but I do not condone live scope. You guys know my position on forward-facing sonar. I think it's terrible for the sport. So the techniques I'm going to tell you about fishing these are non-live scope techniques, because I do not condone live scope caught fish. So anyway, with these on here, like the little finessey stuff like this, one of the things that I'll do, and I'm going to get into the last one here in a second, but on the rib swim bait and on the Megabass Has and Dong shad, this is what you need to look for, like from now till March. Get out on the main lake. And sometimes in the creeks, like during the pre-spawn, but like from now until, you know, early March, get out on the main lake and find you some big rounded or flounder type points, and graph around those points out there with your 2D sonar. You don't need anything else but 2D sonar. First thing you want to do is pay attention to where you see a lot of the activity, like where you see the bait fish suspended down there. And if you're in water visibility where these things work, which is normally at least 3 foot of visibility, if you're in a lake that's got 3 to 10 foot of visibility, a lot of these fish are going to be in anywhere between 20 to 60 foot of water. So I get out off those points with my 2D sonar and I graph around in 20 to 60 feet, depending upon how clear the water is. I pay attention to where I'm seeing the bait fish activity. I don't even have to see the fish. Once I see the bait fish activity, say for example, if the water is 5 foot clarity and I'm in 30 or 40 feet of water, and I start to see a lot of bait fish balls about 15 feet down, that's when I back off and I'll take the Has and Dong shad and I'll throw it out there on just fan cast it all over those points out there, and I'll cast it down to the depth that I think it's getting into that 10 to 15 foot zone, and just start slowly reeling it with my spinning rod. Don't do anything to it, just slowly reel it through that depth column there. And I work all the way around the point, just fan casting everywhere out there, and it's a good way to catch suspended fish. And with the round swim bait here, I use this under the same situations if it's like cloudy and windy out in that clear water, but most of the time I have had better success on the rib swim bait. Is I get out off those same points, I cast it out there, I let it hit the bottom, and then I just sort of slowly crawl it just off the bottom. I try to keep it within like a foot of the bottom, and they bite it really good like that. And also, guys, both of these little swim baits here, if you've got wave breaks, which are those docks that are in front of the marina docks to keep the waves from hitting them, wave breaks, the outside of big marina docks or bridge piers, these are all real good baits for those. Now the last one, guys, I'm going to talk about is the core tackle hover head here, the hover rig head. And I use the hover rig head on the tiny fluke here. So what you do on the hover rig head, we've talked a little bit before, but if you don't, you don't come in through the top of the head, you come in just about 1/4 of an inch below it and just thread it on there just like you would a regular jig head. And then you can come through the bait like that, and then once you come through it, you want to insert the head, the tip of the head, back into it there. So just take your time with this. Like that. So that actually the entire body, the lead part of the body, is inside of the swim bait here. Now what this makes it do, guys, is when you use this hover head out here on the Zoom Tiny Fluke, when this thing falls, it's falling all crazy through the water like that. And when you jerk it, you can jerk it like a fluke and it just darts all over the place like that. So the time that I like the Tiny Fluke is if I'm in shallow water. And what I do is I'll get up on the same type of points and I'll take that hover rig with the Zoom Tiny Fluke and I'll throw it out there on those shallow points in clear water, and I just twitch it almost like you're fishing a walk in top water. Let it sink down a little bit. The thing just curls down like that. Twitch it and it darts all over the place. It's a really good way to catch them shallow in clear water. So anyway, guys, that's my 3 favorite small swim baits. It's a good way to get you a limit. They will catch big ones too, especially if you're in a lake that's got a lot of spotted bass and smallmouth in it. And they're probably one of the top producers over the last 5 or 10 years as far as catching lots of fish and even playing an integral role in winning tournaments. I mean, when you get into a condition where you've got clear water, tough fishing, and a lot of suspended fish, you can win tournaments on this technique. So anyway, get used to them, give them a try. One of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you guys on there is throw it on 4-pound test Seaguar and Bizex line. You'll get a lot more bites with it. Just try it out and get some confidence in it. So see you later.